Okay, so I usually do straight up video essays, but I'm not entirely proud of how my last video came out. So I'm gonna try something kind of new, a ranking video. And not just any ranking video, a Spider-Man ranking video. Because Across the Spider-Verse just came out, and this is totally not an excuse to talk about it. So today I will be ranking all 10 Spider-Man movies, both live action and animated, with careful consideration. And like many movie ranking videos, this one will probably piss people off. So, let's get started. Also, spoiler warning for every Spider-Man movie, including Across the Spider-Verse. The mildly warm takes begin now. Yeah, I don't really like this movie. It isn't the worst thing in the world, nor is it the worst MCU movie by a long shot, but it's really, really bland. Visually, it looks more stale than some crusty-ass bread. Everything in Europe is dull and gray like most Marvel movies these days, and its set pieces never really do anything creative with the exception of the illusion scene, which I'll get back to in a second. It feels too much like a road trip comedy with crappy jokes than an actual Spider-Man movie. Like, the stuff with Brad was really not interesting or funny at all. Peter's arc is decent, but they kind of forget about developing him about a quarter of the way through the movie until the third act, and even then, it wasn't much. The thematic core of this movie is Peter moving on from Iron Man's death and becoming his own hero. But for a Spider-Man movie, that kinda sucks. The best part of this movie is easily and obviously Mysterio, because holy shit, they let Jake Gyllenhaal go crazy with this. He's incredibly fun to watch, and he's actually pretty interesting despite not being that fleshed out of a character. But his pure insanity is just so magnetic. Or maybe it's just that everything else in this movie is boring in comparison. The way his powers work are pretty cool too, I guess, and the illusions do look amazing, but there's not much else amazing about it. I don't know. Overall, it's not bad, but it's not great either. I already know people are going to be saying, but what about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3? And I will get to that later. Let me start by saying that I do not think this is a bad movie. I enjoy it, it's fun, and it's got its strong moments. I just like every other movie on this list more. But anyways, back to The Amazing Spider-Man. I absolutely adore how they wrote this Peter Parker. Like, he is the perfect mix of dork, nerd, asshole, jokester, and everything else. I also have a slight bias towards the movie because Andrew Garfield is my favorite Spider-Man. He just brings the most life to him both as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man in a way that neither of the other two actors really could. Having him be a bit more of an asshole as he starts his Spider-Man journey is also a much more interesting way of tackling the character than him just starting as a hero. I know Raimi does the same thing, but they lean into it a lot more in this one. Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is also really good, my second favorite Gwen. Her and Peter's relationship actually feels like a relationship in these two movies. It feels more passionate and more real than the just kind of alright romance in the MCU trilogy, or even the solid MJ and Peter romance in the Raimi films. But as much as I love those parts, I will say that this movie does have some weird stuff. I'm never going to be a fan of having Peter's parents be super spies, and I don't like the double down in the next one, but whatever. Like many people, I also found the Lizard to be a just serviceable villain. He ain't bad, but he's no Doc Ock. A big part of his issues come from not really connecting to the themes of this movie at all. He kinda just goes from being an interesting guy who's trying to regrow his arm to an average next step in human evolution villain. It was uninspired, to say the least. Also, I am not a fan of this Spider-Man suit. Like, it just looks so weird. I get that they were going for a realistic and kind of grounded style, but that was just not it. The last thing I want to say about this one is that visually, this and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 are the best looking live-action Spider-Man movies, and I will not be changing my opinion on that unless the House of Mouse manages to get their shit together sometime soon. I already know someone will want to shoot me for putting this so high on the list, so let me just say that I know that there are a lot of problems in this movie. I just don't care. The villains do suck, the super spy parent stuff still sucks, and the fact that we didn't get another one of these sucks, but I just really enjoy watching this movie. It's fun, Peter and Gwen's relationship gets even deeper, and I love how far they go to make it feel so real, because Spider-Man's character is all about his relationships, and this movie finally gets that. Gwen's death was actually really well done and a really sad scene. I wish everything connected a bit better thematically, but oh well. And at least Andrew Garfield is still doing his thing and absolutely killing it.
Just one Spider-Man. Or woman, we don't know. For sure.
The special effects for this movie are actually perfect, and the suit, oh my god, that's just the best live-action Spider-Man suit, no competition. Look at those eyes, man, it's beautiful! And I know, the villain sucks some hard ass, but it's still entertaining. If they had focused more on Peter and Gwen's relationship and less on magically fixing the gap in Jamie Foxx's teeth, this could have been one of the best one of these things. I will say that the one stupid choice that actually took me out of the movie was making Peter the only one genetically who could be Spider-Man. I just think it's a really dumb choice considering the whole idea that anyone could be Spider-Man. But I guess they really want to be different. So, say what you will about the movie, but it undeniably has a lot of heart beneath the studio tampering, and it feels more like a comic book movie than so many of the recent ones we've gotten. Also, I like Paul Giamatti's Rhino. I think he's funny.
Well, let me get this straight. You think that killing those guys is funny?
I do. And I'm tired of pretending it's not.
Okay, hear me out. I also do not think this is a bad movie. I enjoyed myself watching it. But the inclusion of Tobey and Andrew and all the other non-MCU Spider-Man villains will always feel more like a cash grab than a genuinely well thought out story element. The effects team was clearly not given enough time to make this shit. The first half until Green Goblin shows up is unbearably lifeless. The cinematography still looks like shit. Doctor Strange was a very forced inclusion, and oh my god, the stuff about Ned being a sorcerer made me want to walk out of the theater.
Almost lost my cool there.
Especially after Into and Across the Spider-Verse, this movie feels a lot more like a nostalgia-bait cash grab with the way it uses the multiverse. I won't say that I didn't buy into it, but I never found it to be an integral part of Tom's story. Willem Dafoe is still great, Alfred Molina was charming, and I couldn't help feel some childlike joy when Tobey and Andrew suited up again. And the last 10 minutes were genuinely some of the best, most honest moments the MCU has ever offered. I just wish the rest of the movie was that way. Like, come on, why do every single one of these MCU Spider-Man films have to be about him learning what it means to be Spider-Man? We already did this in the first one. We can find something new. But, like I said, I did enjoy it. It was fun, it had at least some solid jokes, and the action wasn't always that terrible. That being said, I do wish Paul Giamatti was in it.
Let me tell you something! Let me tell you something!
Look, I know this seems low, but this is actually one of my favorite MCU movies. I think it's a top 10 MCU film. The only reason it's this low is because I like the other ones better. I think this is the best MCU Spider-Man movie just for managing to be a mostly good story about Peter learning what it means to be Spider-Man and the sacrifices that take, along with not blindly believing what Tony tells him. As much as people joke about it, Iron Man's presence works in the context of an MCU set Spider-Man movie. It's too bad they ruined it in Infinity War, but whatever. Visually, it's solid. I love the last act. I think Aunt May's character is at her best here and at the end of No Way Home, and I think Vulture has one of the coolest designs of an MCU villain. I think that twist was really well done as well, and it's probably one of the best twists in an MCU movie. Not that there are many good ones. There's not much else to say though. It's a really solid movie and one of the only times Tom's Spider-Man feels like Spider-Man. I also loved that rubble scene. How can you not love that rubble scene? This is where I'm going to start pissing even more people off. I wholeheartedly think, even with all the Venom stuff, the cringe dance shit, and every other problem in this movie, that this is a genuinely good movie. Look, I know the Harry amnesia thing was a bit silly and that the Venom storyline could have been fit a bit better into the plot, but it's got some great stuff even with all that. Peter and MJ's relationship struggles were well done. I still do like how Peter acts with the symbiote, and Sandman was a terrific antagonist. Love the costume too. Do I wish that Sam Raimi and co got to make the exact movie they set out to? Hell yes. But I think they did a really good job with the hand they were dealt. This is the only Spider-Man movie where Peter actually is forced to deal with the ego of being such a popular hero. Pairing that with the symbiote suit and his relationship struggles made for a surprisingly interesting thematic concept, especially for a Spider-Man movie. And another thing, I don't think MJ was as annoying as everyone makes her out to be. I mean, I get that people find it stupid that she complains about Peter being Spider-Man even though she was fine with it in the last one, but he acts like a completely different person in this one, and that's an interesting place to take their relationship. It doesn't go as far as the Paul shit in the comics, but it makes for a good Spider-Man story to see Peter and MJ overcome the struggles of their relationship in order to come out stronger. Listen, I get the complaints and I understand not liking it. Me personally though, I think it's good. I actually watched this pretty recently, so my thoughts on it are still pretty fresh. There's not going to be much controversy here. It's a classic, the definitive Spider-Man origin film. I mean, not that there's much competition, but, you know. It's campy and a bit cheesy, yeah, but that works wonders for a comic book movie. The thing about this trilogy is that Sam Raimi knows when to embrace the silliness of the comics and when to embrace the heart of the characters, because it's got some great bits, but it never undercuts itself when it needs to be serious. Tom Holland. It's got great character work. This movie is a lot less of a Spider-Man movie and more of a Peter Parker movie. 90% of this film has him out of the suit, and that works wonders for making you feel for him. The effects hold up surprisingly decently after this time. Some of the jokes, on the other hand,
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
I will say that the acting can be a bit rough. It plays into the charm most of the time, but other times it's just kind of funny. My biggest problem is honestly Green Goblin. Wait, hear me out. I love Green Goblin. I think Willem Dafoe went so hard for this role, and he is a terrific villain. But I just have no idea why he randomly wants to team up with Spider-Man. He explains that he wants him on his side since he's the only one who can stop him, but he could also just kill him. And then this random conflict slingshots us into a third act with some not great build-up. To say the least, it left me expecting a bit more. They gave him a great motive and goal in the first half of the movie and pretty much just forgot about giving him a new goal after he killed the board. But I'm not going to complain anymore. I love this movie, and the meme potential is just insane. It's a masterpiece. I'm going to be completely honest. It took me like 3 viewings of this thing to actually fully appreciate it. Most of it comes from the fact that I wasn't as into animation as I am now, but I just didn't get all the hype before. Now though, this movie is my shit. The animation is on another level of artistry. Every frame is a masterpiece in its own right. I mean, the attention to detail on every little thing is just insane. How do people actually make this? Story-wise, it's got a whole lot of heart. Having a whole concept being a washed-up Peter mentoring Miles is amazing. It gives both a lot of comedic and thematic potential. Miles finding a path for himself as Spider-Man and being able to reach the expectations his family has for him was the perfect place to take a Spider-Man movie. It grounds it, and I especially love that they use Miles as a protagonist for it. I will say, wish it was a bit deeper, because yeah, the story's amazing and it fits the vibe of a comic book story perfectly, but I didn't always feel that impact as much as the next 2 movies on this list. For example, Kingpin is a good villain. I get his place in the story and all, but he could be a bit better, but that's just me. I think Peter B. Parker in this is one of the most interesting adaptations of Peter. I absolutely love everything they did with him here. But I will say that as fun as the other Spider people were, they felt kind of not entirely necessary, but more as that they didn't get enough depth as they should have. Like just 1 or more scenes for each of them would have solved all my nitpicks, but in the end of the day, it is just a nitpick in the grand scheme of how well-rounded Miles and Peter's arcs are. I do think that the best part of this movie, aside from the animation, is Miles' interaction with his family. It's just so real. And the Prowler, God, that death scene was a tearjerker. Great stuff. There's not much else to say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times. It's a masterpiece. And before I move on, these movies are genuinely hilarious. Like, they make the MCU look like shitty stand-up. I think Spider-Man 2 is the best live-action Spider-Man movie. How could you not? It's got the best Peter Parker story of any of these, actually showing him trying to give up his responsibility in exchange for a happier life, but knowing that he has to do what's right. It's a perfect mix of depressing tone and unbridled campiness. Doc Ock is one of the best villains in any comic book movie ever. He's just a perfect match for the theme of the story, which not a lot of these movies try to do. And MJ and Peter's relationship absolutely shines here. Raimi actually gives them the time and care to not make it feel like a usual rushed subplot. The camera actually lingers on them. They have actual chemistry. Like, wow, we don't see that as much in these things anymore. And also, for as much as I think the acting was a bit stunted in the first one, the style works really, really well here. Even James Franco was good. I especially love where they took Harry in this one, having him slowly degrade into becoming his father. That was just a really interesting place to take him, and it fits perfectly into Peter's story of how much he just can't catch a break. Stylistically, this is one of the most comic book-esque comic book movies. Every shot has purpose, and it isn't just the usual MCU wide shot, mid-shot, clip it together shit. It has actual purpose. This movie's fucking beautiful, and the CGI actually looks good. I legitimately have no problems with this movie. It's a classic, a staple of the genre. It's fucking art. And it's also a terrific reservoir of memes. I already feel like this is going to be an unpopular opinion because I've seen a lot of people prefer Into the Spider-Verse more, but whatever. I think that Across the Spider-Verse is not only the best Spider-Man movie, but it's also just one of the best movies ever. It's also kind of the whole reason I made this video. Across the Spider-Verse is a genuine, comprehensive masterpiece. I'm not even talking about animation. Where Into the Spider-Verse took me a few watches to be hooked, Across the Spider-Verse had me locked in on the first minute. The first 20 minutes, which aren't even set on the main character of this movie, they just focus on Gwen, and it takes her relatively surface level character from Into the Spider-Verse and transforms her into the beating heart of the film. Her inability to fit into her own world, to be accepted by her own father, combined with her longing to see her only friend and melded with an absolutely majestic mood board of a universe, makes every beat in those first 20 minutes hit so hard, and that's just the beginning. The next chunk of the movie, all the way up to the midpoint, just hangs out with Miles. We get to catch up, see his day-to-day life, see his struggles of balancing the normal life with the Spider-Man life, seeing him be told how his life has to go. Those family moments in the first movie that I said were the best part, they double down on it. They take Rio and Jefferson and turn their love and expectations for Miles into the fuel of the next hour of the movie. Miles and Gwen's relationship, which wasn't even that deep in the first movie, feels so strong, so perfect, and that's just in the first hour. And then we jump into the multiverse stuff, and shit gets fun. We get to see new worlds, new characters swing and jump and move in ways that we've never seen any other movie ever think about trying. The backgrounds, oh my god, the backgrounds! Miguel's universe, Earth 42, Gwen's universe, they all look so amazing. Let me stop real quick to talk about the cameos. I expected, of course, the weakest part to be the No Way Home style cameos. You know, quick cash grabs of Toby and Andrew and Tom just thrown in. But that never happens. The variants of Spider-Mans are rarely ones we've seen. Instead, they went with new designs and fresh characters. When it is a Spider-Man we've met, it's brief and it's respectful. Except for the Venom thing. I didn't really like that. But it never goes for the cash grab because that's not what this movie's about. And it realizes that after only like 20 minutes into the Spider Society. The story is about Miles, about his story and the way it's supposed to go. Every other Spider-Man movie shows Peter suffer, shows him lose everything only to get back up and put the mask on to do what's right. But Across the Spider-Verse rejects that suffering that has defined Peter Parker, Miguel O'Hara, and every other Spider-Man and says, "Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing." Having Miles reject the loss that's supposed to define him is a slap in the face to every comic writer that makes damn well sure Peter never grows up, and it is so satisfying of a slap. Spider-Man's story doesn't need to go the same way. Not every Spider-Man movie needs to have an Uncle Ben, a Gwen Stacy, a fridged character to motivate our hero. Spider-Man can be a hero without that. He can be his own kind of hero. And that's beautiful. And that's only part one. I know everyone was complaining, oh, it's just a setup movie, but this movie doesn't just set up a part two. It has its own narrative arc, a full arc. Gwen's arc of acceptance of being able to actually open up to her loved ones is a whole complete character arc. The story arc has a beginning, middle, and end. This movie's a beautiful, emotional, funny, stunning, all-around masterpiece. So yeah, of course I'm going to think that this is the best Spider-Man movie. And now that I'm realizing it, this ranking has kind of turned into a video essay where I just start talking about Across the Spider-Verse, but it's just so good I couldn't help myself. So yeah, those are my Spider-Man rankings. I hope they didn't piss you off because, I mean, they're just my opinions. But anyway, thanks for watching. And before I go, Across the Spider-Verse, Gwen Stacy is trans!